Hi, I'm John Moses.
And I'm Will Carey. Have you ever watched the news and analyzed a story from the foreign side of the picture and not just what the U.S. is reporting? Or gone to see what other media outlets are reporting? We will be discussing and analyzing multiple media views on the Ukraine-Russian crisis that has been going on since March 1st, 2014. In this time, multiple major events have occurred, such as the initial invasion of Crimea, the downing of MH17 over Ukraine airspace, and many other conflicting reports.
The sources we will be using to discuss the conflicting issues in this segment will be coming from the New York Times, located here in the United States, the Moscow Times, located in Moscow, Russia, and the Day newspaper, which is located in Kiev, Ukraine. The region where all the conflicts are occurring is in the state of Crimea, which is a peninsula. This is formerly a part of the Ukraine nation. Here is where the focal point of the conflict thrives. Also, two world powers are gradually getting more involved in this issue, Russia located in Asia and the United States located in North America.
The main cause of this crisis is the initial invasion of the Ukraine by President Putin. First, Putin wanted to create an Eastern Union and have alliances with him, but he has failed to create these alliances. The Ukraine, for instance, has completely alienated itself from the Russian alliance. Without creating alliances, anyone dealing business with the Russians can ask for more favorable terms because the Eastern Union is weak as a whole. Secondly, Putin gradually underestimated the Western nations' powers. He has now driven Russia into a time of economic sanctions, which is leading them into a recession. Third, Putin underestimated the world as a whole. Many leaders and close friends of Putin have not expressed his support over his invading of the Ukraine. His actions have also caused other nations like China to possibly take advantage of this economic isolation. The result of Putin's actions have resulted in casualties of over 4,000 military and civilians combined, and the death toll is climbing. Now Will and I are going to separate and give our analysis of multiple media reports. I will be covering the themes from the Ukraine and Russian media point of view.
And I will be covering the perspective reported from the United States. Each of these articles have a common theme and time period they were published. By selecting articles from the same time period, this will give you a better understanding of how these media outlets projected the same stories in their own point of views.
The first few articles analyzed portray signs of a second Cold War because of how there has been so much propaganda from so many news outlets coming out over the Ukraine versus Russia crisis that no one really has a clear picture of what the war is over anymore. All the press is releasing is lies from each side to cover up their own mishaps along the way. This doesn't make sense to some people because in this day and age where technology rules everything, people are able to find out the truth and what could be a lie. The propaganda war is basically turning into a giant public relations battle between the two nations, Ukraine and Russia, pointing fingers at each other to bring bad publicity as the ultimate goal. This is also what occurred in the first Cold War. It was a bunch of propaganda techniques to see who could slander the opposing country and try to use these forms of propaganda to sway the citizens of their country. A way that the Russians are portraying a second Cold War is by covering up their bad PR, such as the downing of the Malaysian airliner over Ukrainian airspace, by reporting that they're sending 280 trucks of humanitarian aid to the eastern Ukraine. Another example of Cold War-like tactics is the countering of bad PR, such as when the entire world is waiting on a report of the downing of the Malaysian airliner MH17, the Western Union jumps in and claims a direct invasion of Russia, which leads to them imposing harsh economic sanctions to shift the focus. The West basically puts a stranglehold on any state or country that goes against them. They do this through propaganda tactics and public relation maneuvers, as do the Russian leaders as well. The West is holding levels of sanctions against Russia that affects mainly the economy and other various areas. As the Russians continue to not listen to the Western nations, these sanctions will intensify in each stage. The hopes are the Russian government eventually wakes up and realizes they need to stop this invasion of Ukraine. The Russians' clear objective is opposite, as they want the Western nations to realize that Russia means business and they will not stand down to anyone. Overall, the war will continue in the eyes of the media until one or the other gives in and eventually could lead to an all-out war if Russia grows tired of these sanctions and feels they have nothing to lose anymore. This will continue to be a propaganda battle and media.
After analyzing articles published by the New York Times, I've noticed that when U.S. journalists report on this conflict, they speak about the citizens of Ukraine in such a way that they would be willing to do anything for their country and for their culture. It is also shown that Russian citizens have an overwhelming sense of pride for their nation, yet lack respect for their leader, Putin. In a few of these articles, it talks about how the decisions being made by Russian political figures strongly affects the sense of nationalism, not only in their home country, but also in Ukraine. One thing that stuck out to me was a quote said by a Russian citizen. He says, "Many Russians cringed at the way their economic, political, and cultural establishment jumped on Mr. Putin's bandwagon without a debate or nuance. Those who objected were in turn attacked as national traitors in a troubling echo of Soviet-era tactics. This resonated in me because it is saying that just because you don't agree with certain political decisions, you should just be tormented and attacked for your beliefs. From an American media point of view, the level of nationalism that lies within the citizens of Ukraine as well as Russia is overwhelming. As the conflict grows, the people of Russia are slowly losing confidence in President Putin's abilities to lead their country. On the other hand, the Ukrainian people are slowly gaining a form of nationality that has never existed, but is yet apparent due to their president Petro Poroshenko never losing hope and never giving in to the Russian invasion of their national identity."
An article analyzed by the Day Ukrainian newspaper shows signs of dependency theory. It starts with the point of view that Putin is turning the nation, Russia, into a pro-terrorist retreat, and he is slowly becoming the next Napoleon or Adolf Hitler. Because from the Ukraine point of view, Putin is evil and slowly crumbling by making all the wrong moves. As mentioned, he also has placed Russia on the terrorist states list, which makes them a terrorist-sponsored nation. This hurts the image of Russia and President Putin. The article is also portraying a picture of Obama being a coward for not standing up and helping Ukraine directly, by claiming that NATO can take down Putin without the help of the United States, which in many eyes is clearly not the case. He's mentioned as staying very comatose, which is very dangerous for the rest of the world because he's opening up the doors of Putin being able to single-handedly decide the fate of the Ukraine as he pleases. Basically, Obama called Ebola the number one threat in the world right now, but Putin has shown signs of taking over Europe by breaking international laws and agreements to show signs that he has a much bigger threat, especially to Europe. In this article, the Ukraine is depicting some dependency theory traits based on how the journalist quotes, "NATO cannot defeat Putin without the help of the United States, whom has other higher priorities at the moment. Being the most powerful nation in the world, the U.S. basically has complete control over everything going on and can help at the snap of a finger. By not helping, they are further damaging the future of Ukraine and Europe as a whole. If the U.S. helped out with the acts of war, they could potentially spark a war that the world is not ready for."
The second theory that we found correlates with all three of the news media outlets we analyzed is that of agenda-setting theory. Agenda-setting theory describes the ability of news media to influence the salience of topics on the public's agenda. That is, if a news item is covered frequently and predominantly, the audience will regard the issue as more important. Now, agenda-setting theory was formally developed by Dr. Max McCombs. This is used worldwide in all types of news outlets in order for them to portray the story that they want their viewers to see. In conclusion, the media topics we analyzed from our sources and that we covered were the consequences of Putin invading the Ukraine, his failure to establish an Eastern alliance, and his underestimated the Western alliance, formerly known as NATO, and the world as a whole losing support from national leaders, some who are friends and former supporters. After watching our segment, we hope you have a better understanding about the conflict in Ukraine, as well as how different media outlets portray the news to their specific audience.